They are Dr. Geraldine Richmond, to be Undersecretary of Science, Department of Energy. Ms. Camille Tutone. Is that correct? Tutone, to be Commissioner of Reclamation, Department of the Interior. Mr. Brad Crabtree, to be an Assistant Secretary of Energy for Fossil Energy and Carbon Management. Mr. Charles F. Sams III, to be Director of the National Park Service, Department of the Interior. Mr. Willie L. Phillips, Jr., to be member of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Dr. Amaret Berhe, to be Director of the Office of Science, Department of Energy. Is it Laura? Which one? Ms. Sarah Bronin, to be the Chair of the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. I think all 7 of the nominees are well qualified for the position for which they have been nominated, and I will vote to report out all 7. I want to recognize Senator Brasso for his opening statement.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And today I will support 5 of the 7 that you have just mentioned. Mr. Sams, I believe, will bring a fresh perspective to the National Park Service. Mr. Crabtree will bring a commitment to carbon capture technology to the Department of Energy. I believe Mr. Phillips will bring a wealth of expertise in safeguarding energy reliability and affordability to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the FERC. Dr. Richmond will bring 40 years of experience to the Department of Energy's scientific mission as Undersecretary for Science and Energy. Ms. Tutone will bring a willingness to work with stakeholders from across the political spectrum to the Bureau of Reclamation. While I don't necessarily agree with all of their views, I do believe they are well qualified and deserving of support. I look forward to working with each of these 5 to address the various Wyoming priorities that are impacted by their respected offices. Not all of the nominees before us today are well qualified and deserving of support. Dr. Berhe has been nominated to serve as Director of the Office of Science at the Department of Energy. Dr. Berhe has been a professor of soil biogeochemistry for over a decade. She's focused her research on soil management and sequestering carbon in soil. Her background and experience has very little to do with the Department of Energy and the scientific community with which it collaborates. So I will not support her nomination. And I cannot support Mr. Bronin, who has been nominated to serve as Ms. Bronin, who has been nominated to serve as Chair of the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. While Ms. Bronin has experience in the historic preservation field, I'm concerned about the types of reforms to historic preservation programs that she may pursue. If her record as a leading advocate for progressive zoning reforms in Connecticut is any indication, she's likely to attempt to alter the character, nature, and scope of the Advisory Council. So the Chairman and I have reached an agreement to hold voice votes on Mr. Sams, Mr. Crabtree, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Richmond, and Ms. Tutone, and I've asked the others to have a roll call vote. I encourage members to join me in opposing them.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Wyden.
1 minute. First, I want to thank Senator Brasso and Senator Manchin for moving Mr. Sams. This is an American who we're going to be proud of in terms of his service on parks. A lot of my colleagues met with him and talked with him. I very much appreciate his consideration today. I hope all colleagues will support him. I think he is going to make us proud of what he does at the Park Service, and I thank my colleagues.
Thank you. Any other comments or any other nominees at all? Senator Angus King.
Mr. Chairman, I intend to support Mr. Crabtree as Assistant Secretary for Energy, but I wasn't enthusiastic about his answers on the question of exporting of natural gas and how that relates to the national interest finding necessary in order to approve export facilities. I think this is a significant problem as natural gas prices have doubled in the last year, and yet we continue on a major expansion of the capacity to export natural gas, which I don't believe is in the national interest. I think it should be considered when making those decisions. Mr. Crabtree, I intend to support, but I felt that his answers were not as forthcoming as I would have liked on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other senators wish to comment on any of our nominees? If not, I understand the roll call votes have been requested on Dr. Berhe and Ms. Bronin. Unless any senator wants to roll call on any other nominees, I ask unanimous consent that we take up the five nominations on the agenda in block and that we have a voice vote on those 5. Is there objection? Hearing none. That will be the order. The question is reporting nomination of Dr. Geraldine Richmond to be Undersecretary of Science, Department of Energy, Dr. Camille Touton to be Commissioner of Reclamation, Department of Interior, Dr. Brad Crabtree to be the Assistant Secretary of Energy for Fossil Energy and Carbon Management, Dr. Charles Sams to be the Director of the National Park Service, and Mr. Willie Phillips to be a member of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, with the recommendation that each of the nominations be confirmed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the nominations are favorably reported. Does anyone wish to be recorded as voting no on any of the nominees? If there is no request for a roll call vote, then the question on nomination will not be needed. So with that, now we will go the roll call votes that have been requested. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more if we can until we get our quorum placed.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the recognition. I wanted to just speak briefly on those two nominations that we just passed. Dr. Charles F. Sams to be the National Park Service Director. Historic moment for someone from the Pacific Northwest, Warm Springs background, and our Park Service, having been vacant for a long period of time, is desperately in need of the leadership that I think Mr. Sams can provide us. So very excited that he is moving to the Senate floor, and that this level of diversity and focus on interior issues, if you will, a continuation of leadership in the Department of Interior about our first stewards of our lands, Native Americans. So I'm glad to see that diversity integrated into the leadership. We've come a long way on that issue, and I know both sides of the aisle support that kind of leadership at our Department of Interior. And secondly, I would like to congratulate moving forward on Ms. Camille Touton. Mr. Chairman, I'm just talking here as we hope our colleagues will show up. But Ms. Touton is a very important nomination to get passed and moved forward, because the Commissioner of Reclamation, as all my colleagues know, I think at her hearing, people even mentioned it, whiskey was for drinking and water was for fighting over. And we know in the West that there's going to be a lot more fights and consciousness about what we're going to do about water. I was proud to author language in our bipartisan infrastructure bill out of this committee on the construction of aquifers. If we're going to have warmer and wetter conditions and less snowpack, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have less water. It just means we have to figure out a different way to store it. And I think our aquifer recharge program is an important example of how we in the West might be adopting to these kinds of challenges of wetter conditions. So I look forward to Ms. Touton's leadership on that issue as a Commissioner of Reclamation, and hope that it's something our committee will continue to look at, the importance of our changing climate, and the fact that, again, looks like we're going to have a lot of water. It's just not going to be in snowpack. So for us, that we're a 70% reliant hydro state, this is an incredibly important issue, incredibly important. But I know my colleagues in the West, and I know water and water storage is also very important to them. So really look forward to her leadership in this new position. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there other colleagues that would like to make comments? Senator Daines.
Senator Wyden, thank you. And Chairman Manchin, thanks for your leadership today at this markup. I, too, share the support for Mr. Sams for the National Parks leader. We passed the Great America Outdoors Act. We have a wonderful opportunity now to move forward in implementation of addressing that maintenance backlog. And my favorite subcommittee is the one I get to work with Senator Angus King on as the chairman of the National Park Subcommittee. I'm proud to be your ranking member in that committee, Senator King. And he kindly calls me the vice chair, but I was raised by a Marine. I understand rank, so you're the chairman. But anyway, I'm glad to see we got this done as a committee. We filled that position, and there's a lot of great work to be done, and he's the right guy to do it.
Other colleagues want to make comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, my colleague from Kansas.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to be excited to get these nominations done, but remind everybody it's only 12 days until the Kansas State-West Virginia football game. Let me say that again. There's only 12 days now until the Kansas State-West Virginia football game, and I have a set of the best stakes from Kansas that I'm willing to put up in a pledge that K-State's going to win. If there's anybody that wants to support West
I
Virginia,
think
we'd
I
love
ought
to
to
hear from
yield
them.
to the chairman for his comments.
I watched that game in Oklahoma. Unbelievable how Kansas. So now we got me worried. I might have to. Kansas State. Okay, I'm sorry. But anyway, yeah. Well, we're coming on pretty strong, so we should have a good game there. This week's going to be a big one for us too. But anyway, I notice you have a coaching change, right? Kansas State. Okay, same guy? Oh, that's a new one, okay. Yeah. I don't know what to say. It's always tough to be on the road in Kansas State, I know that. That's going to be a tough game, so I'm going to have to go just to make sure that we do our thing.
Bring your bells with you. Pat Roberts misses the bells ringing.
Pat Roberts, God love him. He came to West Virginia at a game, and that was wild. When Pat's around, it's wild. We're going to go ahead now, and we're going to do the first of that nomination on a roll call vote with Dr. Burhay to be Director of the Office of Science and Department of Energy. Is there any remarks that any of the senators would wish to make on Dr. Burhay? If not, clerk call the roll.
Senator Manchin.
Aye.
Senator Wyden.
Aye.
Senator Cantwell.
Aye.
Senator Sanders.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Heinrich.
Aye.
Senator Hirono. Senator King. Senator Cortez Masto. Senator Kelly.
Aye.
Senator Hickenlooper.
Aye.
Senator Barrasso.
No.
Senator Risch.
No by proxy.
Senator Lee.
No by proxy.
Senator Daines.
No.
Senator Murkowski.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hoeven. Senator Langford. Senator Cassidy. Senator Hyde-Smith. Senator Marshall. On this vote, the ayes are 12 and the noes are 8.
Nominations favorably reported. And we're still waiting on one of our senators to arrive. If that's a possibility, we'll be knowing here in a few seconds. So anybody have any other contests that they're concerned about this weekend? Let me say one thing to the committee that we are thinking about, and I'd love to get all of your input. We're thinking about having a hearing based on the energy, the national security of energy that we have in case we have a conflict of any kind around the world. We're seeing what China is doing right now and how quick they're ramping up, and there's some concerns we have. We want to make sure that we have the necessary energy, the resources for us to defend our country and be able to meet the demands for the supplies that it'll take. So with that, I don't know if anybody had any input on that or any comments on that we should be looking at and or have concerns. Senator King?
I think that's an excellent suggestion, Mr. Chairman. I would like to suggest that we have an open hearing, but also a closed session, because many of the threats are classified, and I think it would be helpful for the committee to have that information.
We can do that, and we take the committee down in the skiff and do it down there. It might be a good place to do it, just to find out exactly what's going on, because what we're seeing just on regular news channels on what China has been doing, hypersonic testing and things of this sort, gives us great concerns in what we're seeing with missile buildup right now. And I just want to make sure, and I think we've had a lot of inquiries concerning on that. Could we meet, as we have in every conflict and every war we've ever been in this country, could we meet the demands for the supplies that we're going to need in the supply chain that we would need in order to defend this
The
country?
first target in any conflict will be the energy system, and
Always has
the
been.
attack will be cyber.
Every war that we've ever, every war that's mostly been fought has been fought over energy of some sort, some reasons, in some ways. So it's something that I think that we should all be very much concerned about.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator.
On that point, I certainly support your recommendation to, and with Senator King's, focusing on the security of the grid, given the amount of attacks that we've had. And I do think it's very appropriate to have a SCIF discussion that is led by our committee, not necessarily only for our committee, but I definitely think our committee should get the full panoply of input from various agencies. A cyber 9/11 event focused on the grid would be devastating to us. And while I think that people are working hard, I definitely think there's more to do. And I do think it's time for our colleagues to join together in that kind of discussion in an environment where we can understand those challenges and what else we could be doing at this point in time. I think it would be very helpful.
Would it be a recommendation then that we do the SCIF first and do the security meeting first before we go into open meeting? Because we usually get caught in an open meeting asking questions. They keep saying, well, we have to go to the SCIF.
SCIF first.
So SCIF first. Is that okay with Senator? We will work on, together, we'll work on this to put it together. Senator Hickenlooper.
Just, I think that it's an excellent idea, and I would expand on what Senator Cantwell was saying. I think it allows us to begin to prioritize the various threats and really be putting our resources where they can be of best value.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other considerations that any of our committee may have on any of the hearings that they would like to see us be reviewing or looking into and seeing if we can bring to our committee? Concerns that you may have? Senator Brasso?
Oh, you don't want me to start on concerns I might have.
Mr. Chairman.
We need to kill time, and I knew one thing. You had a long time to kill here.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cantwell.
Mr. Chairman, we're still working as a body with our House colleagues to get the United States Innovation and Competitiveness Act over the goal line. And a key part of that I want to make sure that we address in our negotiations with our House colleagues is the fact that we need a robust DOE investment as was passed by the United States Senate. We authorized a level of investment roughly mirroring what we thought the investment in National Science Foundation was. And as now we move forward on infrastructure investment and as we move forward on reconciliation packages, some of which includes funding for USICA, I think it's very important that we have a conversation about what is DOE's role in this future effort of our nation to be more competitive, particularly on translational science. That is science that is ready to be deployed. So, and to quickly get that deployment. So I know that this is a remaining discussion and something of great importance to many of my Western colleagues who have states that have big economies related to energy laboratory investment, and clearly to the chairman as well, who sees the national laboratory system as one that needs to continue to add to the level of competitiveness of our nation. So I just look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle on resolving this issue and making sure that as we move forward on NSF funding, we're also moving forward on DOE investment, and that it is commensurate for us to solve our big challenges, particularly as it relates to international competition. So thank you, Mr.
That's in
Chairman.
the consideration right now in the reconciliation bill we've been working through on all the climate.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Marshall.
Well, as long as it's open microphone, I want to talk about pipelines just for a second. I envision a day, 10, 20, 30 years from now, we'll be taking carbon out of manufacturing plants, let's say in the great Midwest, where so much manufacturing is done, and we'll be taking that carbon and have to pipe it to places like Kansas or Illinois or Oklahoma, where the geography allows us to take that carbon and put it into these huge salt oceans underneath the ground. And I just hope that this committee, as we think about infrastructure, that we don't throw pipelines out altogether. We have pipelines that run through our family land for decades, and you wouldn't know they were there. We still have great hunting and great cattle grazing, but pipelines are going to have to be part of our future. And I just kind of feel like this administration is saying no more pipelines. And I do think there's a time and place for it. And from an environmental impact, I'm very much in favor of wind energy. But as I see more and more huge power lines going across the state of Kansas and hooping cranes making their migration right now, power lines are the #1 killer of hooping cranes. And we're adding more power lines, and we're adding big windmills. So I am concerned about that as well, and just hope that we can honestly think about what is the environmental impact of wind energy, which, again, I'm in favor of. 50% of our energy in Kansas is electricity made from wind. But the environmental impact of that versus pipelines, I would love to just have a staff talk about, look at that a little bit and come to us. I don't think it needs to be a big committee report, but just keep that discussion open.
We can do that, that's for sure.
Mr. Chairman, over here.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you. If we still have some time.
Oh, we have plenty.
Plenty of time. All right. Well, today, remember about a week ago, a couple weeks ago, we had the drought hearing, Western drought. At the time, Lake Mead was about 1,067 feet above sea level. Today, I just checked, it's 1,066 feet above sea level, so it's going in the wrong direction. Full, by the way, is 1,220 feet above sea level. It holds 9.3 trillion gallons of water when it's full, but it's dropped about 150 feet. If it drops another 115 feet or so, the Hoover Dam will not be able to generate any electricity anymore. So it's already more than halfway there, to the point where the dam, which has been generating electricity for generations, will not be able to operate anymore. So I think it might be a worthwhile thing to have another hearing, but on hydropower, hydropower specifically in the West, and talk about the issues that are connected to our potential inability, maybe not too far off, where we can't generate the electricity we need in the West.
I'm going to comment on that one thing, then we're going to go ahead and probably wrap this up. But anyway, there's a friend of mine who passed away. He was about 100 years old. His name was Charlie Jones. He was he had a Amherst coal, and he was one of the big river people. So he had all the barges and all the tugs on the Kanawha River, and it was one of the most, next to Mississippi, the Kanawha going into the Ohio is one of the most commercial rivers in the country. And before he passed away, we had lunch one day, and he said, "Joe, I want to show you something." And here he is at his age. He says, "I know the problem we're having, and the problem is water in this country, and it's not on our end of this of the country. It's on our friends on the other end." And he had mapped out how we could supply a 48-inch line, a water line, from a pool of water down in West Virginia, Paducah. We have a pool of water there that just seems as endless. And we could pipe that all the way across the country into different parts of the country that might need it. I said, "Charlie, it's a wonderful idea." And this was a few years back. Seeing that his vision and the need for this type of water, it might be something we want to look at as a committee.
We'll take it. We'll take the water.
I think everybody would
right?
take it, yeah, from that standpoint. And I said, "Charlie, is that going to cause us a problem?" He says, "Absolutely not. The flow of water in there." And then the resource could be that the state of West Virginia and Kentucky would share, because they would have the ownership of that water, a certain amount of revenue for that. And it'd be perpetual for us, be good for you all and everybody else, so we never have these shortages.
Yeah, let me just finish by saying the Western Water infrastructure funding we have in the infrastructure bill is going to really help in helping us deal
That'd
with
be
this
one
this
pipeline that
problem.
would bring us all together.
There you go.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to echo on that again, if I could, just build upon that. You know, every year we have flood waters that we keep rebuilding dikes, but instead we could be taking that flood water and shipping it to our dry areas of the nation, and there's no reason there couldn't be an aqueduct and/or a pipeline side by side using dollars together to make that infrastructure.
You know what I can never figure out is the aquifers, they said some of them are running low because of the water tables. When we have these tremendous rains and water, why couldn't we be able to put water back into the aquifers?
You got it. That is absolutely the vision that I would have.
Well,
Perhaps we can repurpose some of those fossil fuel pipelines.
yeah, whatever it takes. Not many left, but whatever it takes.
Mr. Chair, one thing I would just throw out, just as one word of caution, the endless pool of water, what looks like an endless pool of water could apply to the Ogallala Aquifer that we share with Kansas. And at one time, it was endless. And it turns out, in the end, not to be endless. So
Yeah.
these are
Well, that's why we're a little bit careful. We're lacking necessary quorum, so we're going to postpone votes on the rest of the agenda, and that concludes our business meeting.
Sorry about that, Matt.